Hey, Gus Rickard here. On this beautiful sunny morning, I'm out in the park walking. Lola, as always, when I do my Facebook Lives. Today, I'm going to talk about stress. Obviously, the title of this is stress causing you health problems. And the reason I chose to talk about this topic, or the reason I think it's important, is because it's probably the one thing that is implicated in every single chronic health challenge that I see in my clients and that everybody out there sees. We're living in a chronic stress epidemic. So stress, when I talk about stress, I'm talking of stress in the broader sense. As stress is anything that stimulates a stress response, and the stress response is characterized by the release of cortisol, which is our primary stress hormone, and activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight system. So the stress response evolved to get us out of danger right now at all costs. The fight or flight system works in coordination with, or in opposition to, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest or digest nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system slows things down. It shunts blood away from the periphery to our center and towards the digestive organs, towards growth and repair and healing and immune system function. And the sympathetic nervous system does the opposite. It shunts blood away from those vital growth and repair functions to the periphery, to our muscles and to the heart, to allow us to escape danger. So sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, is characterized by elevated heart rate, elevated breath rate, and as I mentioned, elevation of cortisol. So for most of human evolutionary history, the stress response would have been engaged in life or death situations that would have ended in one of two ways, and ended very quickly, usually. So either you'd escape danger in a few minutes and survive and go back to a resting state, or you'd be dead. So that's why the body has evolved this system to put all of our energy into escaping danger now. There's no point in repairing the wound in your arm, or repairing the muscle tissue that you damaged yesterday, picking up firewood or something, if you're going to be dead in 2 minutes anyway. So it evolved to get us out of danger, but for the majority of the day, we would have had a relative balance between the fight or flight and rest and digest systems. So the rest and digest system, the sympathetic nervous system is not bad. It's what wakes us up in the morning, and it's also it's very needed. Stress is needed. So stress, there are, having said that about stress, there is a term, hormesis, and hormesis refers to any stressor that in a low enough at a low enough level will result in a positive outcome. So examples of that are cold exposure or cold immersion. You may have heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman, who's sharing a lot of ideas and practices to do with cold immersion, ice baths and cold showers and things like that. And there are a lot of health benefits to that. At the same time, if you were to go out and walk in the snow or swim in an ice lake when you're not prepared, and to do it for hours at a time, it could be potentially deadly, right? So in a low enough level, cold immersion and ice baths have a positive response. You end up adapting to that cold exposure. There's actually a parasympathetic shift that goes on in the body, and there are cold shock proteins that have a lot of benefit for your immune system and for healing and all sorts of things. Another example would be fasting, when we go a day or a few days without food, and obviously if you go long enough without food, it's potentially deadly. But in small doses, fasting can be very healthy. We can have a positive adaptation to that stress. Another example of a hormetic stress would be exercise. And this is a really important one, because nowadays we have a really bad relationship to exercise. Exercise at a low enough intensity and volume, more so at a low enough volume, can have a positive response, which is what we aim for when we're training in the gym or training for anything. You want to go and do your exercise, go away and rest, and you adapt, you super compensate, so the next time you come back to doing that activity or that workout, you're fitter, you're more adapted to it. But what we have nowadays is very sedentary lifestyles where people don't do anything all day and then go and exhaust themselves in the gym in the evening, and oftentimes due to lack of resources, rest and nutrition, and mainly rest and nutrition, people aren't able to have that positive adaptation to their exercise, and it ends up being a stressor in the negative sense. So we have these hormetic stresses that we would have always adapted to. Another example, I'm not sure if this is hormesis or not, but an example of how we need stress is gravity. And when astronauts go leave the gravitational field and go into outer space to zero gravity, they come back and they're not adapted to the Earth anymore. They have brittle, weak bones. Their muscles tend to atrophy, and they will have trouble often just walking around on the Earth under the force of gravity. So we need stress. Stress has always been in short, intense bursts, balanced by longer periods of rest and relaxation. And small, intense bursts, the right amount of the right stresses at the right time, have a positive adaptation. What we have nowadays is a different story, which is we have chronic low-level stress all day long. So from the time you wake up in the morning, you have your alarm clock goes off. That's a stressor. When your body is wanting to sleep, especially if you're still in an REM cycle and you hear the beep, 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 or whatever it is you hear on your phone, it's forcing you to wake up. That's a stressor. Stimulants like coffee are stressors. People often will wake up and can't get up without a coffee. All the stuff we have in our food additives, preservatives, the shitty fats we have, all these processed polyunsaturated fats, huge amounts of starches and sugars. These are all nutritional stressors, right? Not having adequate nutrition and having too many calories, which is what most people do nowadays, is a stress on the body. Drinking water has chlorine in it. Tap water has chlorine in it, I should say. Chlorine kills off your microbiome in your gut, amongst other things. Also a toxin. Fluoride is in our tap water here too. It's a neurotoxin. It also calcifies everything in your body, which, things like organs and glands, which you don't want calcified, and arteries and our vascular system all gets calcified with fluoride. We have heavy metals and pathogens and stuff in our water, so they're all stressors to the body. Lack of sleep is a stressor. Deadlines, plus all the stuff that we already know is stressful, like moving house, changing job, relationship breakdown. Just relationships in general can be stressful. You name it. We are bombarded by stresses nowadays, and it's this constant low level stress that the body has trouble to adapt to. Now, the stress response, over activation of the sympathetic nervous system and release of cortisol, has been linked to immune dysfunction. When you have excessive levels of cortisol in your blood, the body depresses the immune system, the stress response elevates heart rate and elevates blood pressure. So it's probably the number one causative factor with cardiovascular disease and heart disease and things like that. Cortisol and the stress response stops growth and repair of muscles and joints and ligaments and all the passive and active structures in your musculoskeletal system. So if you're under stress all the time, you never get into a place of growth and repair. You don't heal from wounds and injuries. So we have breakdown. The body's constantly wearing stuff out, and it's only that parasympathetic nervous system that repairs them and makes them stronger. So this is an example of where we have the stress of gravity and the stress of movement, just day-to-day movement or exercise or whatever. If it's not balanced by rest, by the parasympathetic nervous system activating the immune system and the growth and repair functions, then the body just gradually breaks down, right? Exercise and movement and gravity are no longer hormetic, they become chronic. So we need to balance stress, basically. Another really important thing to know is that the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are really expressed by and regulated by, at the same time, that it goes both ways, by our breathing. And when you're in a parasympathetic state, you just check next time you're relaxed, you'll be breathing much more slowly. You're more likely to be breathing with your belly if you haven't already shut down that activity. You'll notice with the parasympathetic nervous system, you will breathe slower on the exhalation. And this works both ways. So when you are stressed, you tend to breathe with your chest and your shoulders because your body's trying to expand your rib cage to get more air in to escape from danger. When you're relaxed, you breathe with your belly. When you're relaxed and in a parasympathetic state, you'll tend to lengthen the exhalation. When you're in a sympathetic state, you'll tend to lengthen the inhalation. And it works both ways. So what happens, because we're so stressed nowadays, so many people, this goes for most people, tend to breathe with their chest and have short inhalations all the time as a habit, because we're all stressed more than we're relaxed. So this brings me to what we can do about being stressed. And the first thing is just be aware of when we're in stressful situations and return to your breath. Breathe with your belly. As you breathe in, your tummy should expand. And as you breathe out, it should fall. Practice this. Just put your hand on your tummy. Put one hand on your tummy, one hand on your chest. Let your tummy hand move before your chest hand. Let your tummy hand finish moving before your chest hand begins moving. This light is annoying me. We can manage stressors by eating properly. Eat real food. My three points of dietary advice that kind of cover everything. One is eat real food. Eat foods that are unchanged from the way nature presented them to us, aka fruits and vegetables and meat. And it's not processed and it's been grown in a healthy environment. Source your food impeccably is the second one. Make sure that your fruit and vegetables and meat come from healthy environments, haven't been sprayed with toxic crap, and haven't been treated cruelly, and have lived outside the way that plant or animal is meant to live in a healthy ecosystem. And eat according to your body's needs. Listen to your body and learn to speak the language of your body, so you know when it's telling you to eat what. That takes a huge amount of stress off. Drink enough water. Get enough sleep. We should be asleep from 10 p.m. roughly to 6 a.m. roughly. Those are the hours that we need to sleep. Sleep with the sun. And the other big one, which is probably, I don't want to say it's the most important, because all those things are just as important, but it's the one that I wanted to speak with most today, is about living your ideal life. You know, if you go and write down your ideal day and your ideal life, your ideal week, what that looks like, the bigger the gap between your ideal and your actual life, the more stress that you're going to feel on a day-to-day basis. If your ideal life involves waking up at 6 a.m., going for a walk as the sun rises, and you know, sitting by the ocean, doing some meditation, and then going home and making a nice fruit salad with some homemade raw milk yogurt with fresh local honey, and you know, doing 3 or 4 hours work on something that you really feel excited about and you feel passionate about, that is helping people, and then going to the gym and having a workout, and then spending your afternoon with friends and loved ones and your family, and having a nice dinner with all these cool people. And instead you're waking up at 6 a.m, you're on the train at 7 a.m. going to work, you've got, you know, your boss breathing down your neck for a job that you don't even really like. You know, you have to scramble to get just some crap food down at the food court at lunchtime and scoff it down in the 15 minutes that you've got before your next meeting, and then you end up working late, and you race home, and kids have been in after school care all afternoon, and you have to get a microwave dinner before you do all the washing and then go back to sleep again. You're going to feel a lot of stress, you know. Obviously I just painted two very extreme pictures, but the more out of sync your life is from what is your ideal, the more stress you will feel. An interesting study, I'm starting to go on a little bit here, so I'll wrap this up soon. An interesting study with primates showed that when they get monkeys in a group, the monkeys start to create a hierarchy, you know, with dominant monkeys being at the top, and all the weaker subordinate monkeys down the bottom. What they showed is that the more dominant a monkey is, the lower its levels of stress. So the monkeys that were at the top, it had much lower levels of all of the chronic diseases associated with stress, whereas the monkeys that were subordinate have much higher levels of stress and stress-related disease. And this is the same in humans. People with less choices and less money have much higher rates of chronic disease. And this is more to do with empowerment than anything else. If you start to make moves towards creating your ideal life, you are empowering yourself, and you are no longer the victim of circumstance and of stress. So when you start to make these choices and start to plan the ideal life, even if it's just a thought in here, you will start to reduce stress, because you know that you are actually choosing to no longer be a victim of those stressful circumstances. So write down what you want, write down how you would like your life to be, and know that you can create your life any way you want it, and don't settle for what is possible or what you think is likely or what is easy. Start making steps to create the life you want. That's my advice for you, or for anybody that's feeling stressed. That's all for today. I hope that was useful. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Feel free to shoot me questions. I'd love to hear from you. If you're getting this, if you're watching this in a replay, shoot me a thing in the comments box, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.